was sort of like that CEO that got caught having an affair on a Coldplay kiss cam a bit ago. That guy ran because Ned Fulmer affair walked. It's like, I don't want to watch you make a $350 mac and cheese for your coworker. Alexi's online. Hi, Alexi here. Welcome back to my channel where I'm trying out fake eyelashes because gender is a performance and I may not be performing it well, but I am performing better than Ned Fulmer's comedy career. Ned Fulmer's comedy career. Now, if you don't know or you somehow forgot who Ned Fulmer is, I wish I could be you, but here is a refresher. Basically, he was part of this group of guys that tried stuff called the Try Guys, who started out on BuzzFeed, then left and started their own popular YouTube channel. A couple of years ago, at this point, photos surfaced of Ned Fulmer kissing a employee of the Try Guys company on a New York City dance floor. It was sort of like that CEO that got caught having an affair on a Coldplay kiss cam a bit ago. That guy ran because Ned Fulmer affair walked. But part of why this affair cheating scandal was actually such a big deal was because Ned's main thing when he was on Try Guys was that he was the wife guy, a term that Urban Dictionary defines as, quote, a man who takes any opportunity to mention his wife in an admiring manner. Or alternatively, a man who is submissive and completely subservient to his wife, usually as a result of declining testosterone. Shout out to the beta male who wrote that one. I think I'm actually gonna go with the first definition though, you stupid Ned's main thing was that he talked about how much he loved his wife all the time. So then when the internet found out that he was having an affair, it was kind of a big deal. He got kicked off of Try Guys, which led to a video where Eugene was making this face the whole time. I think it's super interesting that the internet seems to be blocking any of Ned Fulmer's attempts at returning to the spotlight at every turn. And like another thing that I find so interesting about Ned Fulmer is that he is someone that has actually been as close to canceled as I think we can get. Like, I think that he has much less of a career than James Charles, for example, who, like I've talked about, he's still very solidly in the public eye and making money as a public figure, even though he's a self-admitted predator. And like, I don't want to be a cancellation Olympics person, but I do think that grooming teenagers is worse than cheating on your wife, actually. And like thinking about Ned Fulmer and like cancellation has also led me to think more about like how weird BuzzFeed as a whole is, and other BuzzFeed alumni like Shane Madej and Ryan Bergara and Stephen Lim of Watcher. And I've been also thinking about BuzzFeed celeb thirst tweets, interviews, and misogyny. That was a lot. It might eventually make sense. Also, if you hear any breathing noises in the background, that is my very old dog. But my very old dog, he would never cheat on his wife, partially because he does not have a wife, but mostly because he just would not do that. And you wouldn't want to punish somebody that wouldn't cheat on their wife, would you? Don't you want to praise him for doing the bare minimum? So since getting kicked off of Try Guys, Ned Fulmer has tried a couple of things. He started a podcast where he was going to interview people who had like hit their rock bottom about hitting their rock bottom. It's called Rock Bottom with Ned Fulmer. And the first episode was him interviewing his ex-wife Ariel, and he just like did not come off well the whole time. He's also been buying views and like ad space to promote his current channel, which is just like he's a guy that's trying stuff as opposed to guys who's trying stuff. Someone found his dating profile on a kink site, and then he was claiming he made the profile as an experiment, I think. I watched this video on the whole situation while it was unfolding that I thought was really interesting by somebody that was actually in the kink community. But he most recently went viral again for his comedy.
A lot of my friends in the group chat, they're married and they have kids, so the jokes hit different now, you know? My friends, they're like, oh gosh, I would pay any price just to have an hour to myself. And I say, my friends, the price does exist.
Yeah, that was so funny, I forgot to laugh. A lot of which is just him joking about how people shouldn't Google him and how he lost everything by cheating on his wife. But at the same time, he does keep going on podcasts to talk about how he's owning up to his wife's trauma or something, and then is doing this like, again, Temu Try Guys video where he's continuing to be the asshole I cheated on my wife guy. Why are so many of the people that stayed popular post-BuzzFeed guys? So BuzzFeed Unsolved first premiered February 4th, 2016. The first few episodes were hosted by Ryan Bergara and Brent Bennett, but he was quickly replaced by fellow white boy Shane Madej, and I actually do like low-key think that they just thought we wouldn't notice. The show was filmed in like a side conference room at first, but then Ryan and Shane would start going to different locations in SoCal. They went to the Island of Dolls in Mexico. So Unsolved consisted of Ryan, a believer, telling Shane, a skeptic, about an unsolved crime case and going through like theories of what could have happened, and often one of them was aliens. And then as the show got more popular, they started alternating between supernatural and true crime seasons, and in the supernatural seasons they would go to haunted locations and they would hunt ghosts. I remember like my middle and I think my high school also got out at 3:30 p.m. and like the Unsolved episodes would come out at 3 p.m. on Fridays, I think maybe, and I had study hall then, so I would just watch the new Unsolved episode in the corner on Fridays. It was very nostalgic for me. It's still very nostalgic for me. I got my like vintage merch right here. And I think people were really drawn in by Shane and Ryan's dynamic. Like I grew up watching Ghost Adventures and shows like that with my mom, and having Shane around to be sort of like, hey, that orb we're seeing on the screen is probably just like a bug or something, was pretty refreshing to a lot of the audience. Eventually Shane, Ryan, and Stephen Lim would leave BuzzFeed to start Watcher, where they basically made what fans affectionately called BuzzFeed Unsolved Taylor's version, Mystery Files and Ghost Files. Stephen also appeared on some shows with Shane and Ryan, such as Too Many Spirits, where they drink too many spirits and talk about too many spirits, it's too many spirits. He also hosted his own shows like Homemade and Dish Granted, but then they dropped this video.
As sad as it is to say goodbye to YouTube, it's the right thing to do.
Basically, Shane, Ryan, and Steven wanted to make a new paid service to watch all new Watcher content. So it wasn't a situation where you get like an extra video if you're a channel member, or you get to see the video a couple days early if you're a member on Patreon. No, this was its own separate service, and you needed to pay the like $5 a month to watch any of their new content. I don't know who told them that was a good idea. As one would imagine, fan feedback was quite swift and quite harsh, and pretty quickly they did have to be like, hey, we're sorry, we're actually not doing that.
Hey everyone, last Friday we announced that we're leaving YouTube and launching our new streaming platform. We messed up.
They were talking about in the video like, oh, we want to make TV quality content for YouTube and that's expensive. And fans were pointing out like, hey, we don't want TV quality content. We're watching pretty much for Shane and Ryan's dynamic. Another thing that I really noticed was there was a lot of blaming of Stephen Lim. Stephen was one of the stars of BuzzFeed Worth It, where he and the other Worth It guys would do really expensive stuff to tell us if it was worth it. And he was sort of doing similar stuff on Watcher. In Dish Granted, for example, he would make stuff like a $127 boba for Simu Liu. Around the time of the Watcher incident video, I think Ryan and Shane had joked about Steven needing to pay off his Tesla. So there was this sort of narrative of like, this is all Steven's doing somehow. And I saw a lot of Shane hates capitalism, so he would never actually want to do this, which like, oh, so you're saying that the one white guy in the group is the one that's the most secretly against this decision that's upsetting you. That's interesting. That's a really interesting coincidence that's happening there. Yeah, that's really interesting. Stephen Lim is also not in as much of their content anymore, because when he was, people would like comment about, oh, we hate Stephen Lim. So both the Try Guys and BuzzFeed Unsolved guys, plus Stephen Lim, left BuzzFeed, which obviously overall worked out because people were watching for the dynamics within the groups, but also like Unsolved was Ryan's baby. That wasn't BuzzFeed's idea. He was just doing his own idea with like more creative freedom now, right? For example, I was never as into the Try Guys. But then for both the Try Guys and Watcher, a thing happened, right? For the Try Guys, it was Ned cheating on his wife, and for Watcher, it was their stupid paid platform idea. And in the case of the Try Guys, Ned got fired, and they're doing pretty good still. And in the case of Watcher, they walked back their decision and decided to focus more on shows that starred Ryan and Shane. And they definitely lost some viewership and a lot of audience trust, but they still have their careers. But at the same time, people focused a lot of their anger on Stephen Lim because he was sort of trying to recreate the content he made for BuzzFeed at a time when people were really, really financially struggling. I think we're at a point where we don't want to watch people spend an obscene amount of money anymore. It's like, I don't want to watch you make a $350 mac and cheese for your coworker. He was also kind of already the odd one out in that group. Most of the people were watching Watcher for Ryan and Shane, I would argue, and I think that's part of why he was really targeted. And like, putting my hatred for Tesla owners aside, Shane and Ryan also approved that paid platform decision, guys. They also approved the shows where Stephen Lim was spending obscene amounts of money on a s'more or whatever. Meanwhile, Ned, from my outside cultural understanding, was never the most liked Try Guy. And now that he's been fired, he's still trying to make Try Guys content, and people don't want to watch it. I just think it's interesting that we have two groups of people that left BuzzFeed to make their content under their own label, so to speak, and both had a odd member out. And both of those odd members out were/are trying to make their old content and not having the same success at it because financial times have changed, and because maybe they're a little bit misunderstanding that people aren't just watching for the content, they're watching for the dynamic. They're not watching Try Guys because they like watching guys try things. They're watching it because they like watching these guys try things. And what that actually kind of reminds me of is how all of these fucking hockey shows are getting approved now because of the success of Heated Rivalry, when, the reason that Heated Rivalry was so successful wasn't because of the hockey, it was because it was a gay show with two leading cast members that have a really great chemistry, which leads me to the carrot incident. So basically, BuzzFeed Celeb does thirst tweet videos where celebrities read thirst tweets about them, and it's often in promotion of their show or some new album or project or whatever. One of the more recent ones was this Heated Rivalry, Connor Story and Hudson Williams reading thirst tweets, and it was all going great. They were laughing and joking together, and then this was one of the last tweets.
I don't think Ilya is that great of a lover. Ooh.
Why BuzzFeed? They're like, let's finish off with the ranking of carrot size. Shane being the smallest.
Yeah, what does this mean, y'all?
Ilya being the biggest. They're trying to divide us.
What's that mean? What do y'all mean?
This tweet was read as racist because it is playing into the stereotype that people of Asian descent have smaller penises. The tone of the interview definitely shifted in both. Definitely Hudson Williams, but also I think somewhat Connor Story, reading into that, were both a lot more afterwards. And a couple of months in, after enough people had pointed out hey, this is a really racist thing to include in your weird thirst tweet interview, whatever, BuzzFeed cut it out, but then they didn't cut out this bit about getting a carrot pump at the end. And it is actually really jarring to rewatch it because it's high energy, high energy, high energy. And then they got rid of that carrot tweet moment. So then suddenly both Hudson Williams and Connor Story are very low energy at the end of the interview. So it's kind of confusing, I guess.
Wrote in the there. Y'all have infected Hudson's brain. I'm strong. I have morals and values. I can stand on my own 2 feet. He's a goner.
My God, is this hole getting f***ed up?
All I have to say is my blood is pumping right now and I'm confused.
I'm pretty calm. Could have been more. Could have been hornier. Could have been heavier. And I guess I gotta go buy a carrot pump.
I do think it is important to point out that I think this image is low-key based on a list that Rachel Reed made of the men of the Game Changers universe's sizes, which I'm sure some people wanted that information, and interestingly, the racialized men, Fabian Salam, my beloved, and the one other guy that's not a hockey player were at the bottom of the list. That's fascinating how that works out. Very interesting, Rachel Reed. But you know, like BuzzFeed still chose to include that. I think the most recent BuzzFeed Celebrities Read Thirst Tweets interview kind of deal also had some kind of weird racial dynamics. It was Sam Reed and Jacob Anderson from Interview with the Vampire. It was funny because we did get to see Sam Reed learn what the Omegaverse was in real time.
God, why do I always think if Lestat in Omegaverse, Louis is hidden Omega or Omega dominant, or maybe Beta, and Lestat is the horny alpha who stalks over him? A lot of words I don't know what's going on
I know what
here.
this means.
Oh, right, okay.
God bless that Australian man. But a lot of people in the comments were pointing out there were not very many tweets directed at Jacob Anderson or his character Louis de Pontelac, who is black. Which on the one hand, like, yeah, they're promoting the vampire Lestat, which is starring Sam Reed, so probably they're gonna choose tweets that skew towards Sam Reed on the one hand, but then on the other hand, thinking about it in the context of the heated rivalry video and them trying to remove the carrot tweet, it feels a little weird. And originally this video was gonna be more of a like analyzing bias in these BuzzFeed thirst tweet reading videos, and I just sort of didn't feel like I had enough for that. But it did mean that I went through and I watched these other like thirst tweet interview videos of actors and like music groups and stuff. I did think that was really interesting that most of the people who are in these thirst tweet reading videos were men, and B, a lot of them were in K-pop. That's partially like BuzzFeed sort of knowing who their audience probably is for these thirst tweets, and it's probably people that are more deeply in like fan spaces, and K-pop does have like a really strong and specific fan culture. And then on the other, like the gendered aspect of it all, right, it's very different seeing Alona Meher reading thirst tweets when compared to the members of Seven reading thirst tweets. So there is that happening, right? But I do think it's once again interesting that like what people are watching that has been incubated by BuzzFeed, like that content very often surrounds male celebrities. And then I was going somewhere with the whole K-pop and Hudson Williams thing, because I was then sort of like scrolling back through like, okay, when did the first Try Guys video come out? When did BuzzFeed go from being sort of like, oh, we're like making videos that are just like lists of things essentially, to that golden era of like Try Guys and Ladylike and BuzzFeed Unsolved, to all of those people leaving because BuzzFeed appears to be a terrible company to work for. And I found a couple of videos that were like, people try exotic Asian food. Which I don't think you have to have read on Orientalism to know that it's a little bit odd that they're really othering food from a very specific region, and sort of having people a lot of the time try it and go, ew, this is so gross. Yeah, and I don't know, I just think it's sort of interesting that there's this like history of exoticizing, in particular like East Asian, but also somewhat like Southeast Asian food. And then now today, the BuzzFeed series that is more popular, Reading Thirst Tweets, tends to have more East Asian in particular guests on, and most recently with the heated rivalry, Reading Thirst Tweets kept this really big microaggression in for a really long time against one of the stars, who is, I believe, Korean and white Canadian, and sort of also like plays into this like exoticization and racism, you know? And it's like another aspect of this racism that they were kind of already perpetuating 10 years ago. I know this video is a bit more rambly, but essentially I think what I'm trying to say is that like it's really interesting that it seems like the two most successful groups of BuzzFeed alums are men. And I think it's also really interesting that the ones that have like existing group dynamics have been able to be really successful, while the sort of like out members of that group, Ned Fulmer and Stephen Lim, they sort of aren't able to make the same content for whatever reasons. For Stephen Lim, it's because like the culture around video where you spend a lot of money has changed. And for Ned Fulmer, it's because he's kind of a piece of shit. And I don't know, I guess maybe like it's different watching a group of friends try things versus one guy try things, because I can be a guy that tries things, you know? Whereas I cannot be a try guys that tries things. So I just, I thought that was interesting. And I also thought it was interesting that like in a lot of ways, BuzzFeed itself is still kind of doing the same thing that it's always done, which is leaning into the fact that its viewership really wants to watch men, and also like continuing to perpetuate microaggressions and macroaggressions. I don't know, I just think all those cycles are interesting, and I'm not trying to be like, BuzzFeed should put out more content that they know people won't watch for hashtag equality. I'm literally just pointing out a pattern, like that's it. Thank you so much for watching. My outro is Take a Vacation by The Young Veins. All channel art is by me. Like, comment, and subscribe. You could also reach out to me at aluciasonline@gmail.com if you wanna chat on there, and I have an Instagram, which is it's Alexi's Online, if you want even more access to my life. But yeah, thank you so much again for watching. It really does mean a lot to me, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye now.